Hey everyone, let's continue on with our lesson in terms of trying to find sides in a right triangle. Here I have triangle ABC. I have an angle of 20 degrees. So I want to start off again by labeling everything relative to my known angle. And in this case, A is 20 degrees. I always want to start with my hypotenuse. Opposite of C is my hypotenuse. So in this case, X is my hypotenuse. Opposite of A, the projector 20 degrees projecting over here to A. Hey, you know what? There's nothing on this side, so I'm actually going to grab little a to kind of go over here as well, just because I don't want this opposite a to be so lonesome. And then adjacent to a, I've got my other two sides, opposite hypotenuse, which means this side of 13.5 is going to be the adjacent side. So that's what I want to do. I want to label my triangle first. That's always my most important skill, and that's a skill that you worked on for a couple lessons ago. The next thing I want us to do is I want us to write all three ratios: sine of A, cos of A, and tan of A. Sine of A is opposite over hypotenuse, cos of A is adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan of A is opposite over adjacent. And then I want to look at each of those ratios, and I want us to put in the numbers that we know. So again, instead of writing angle A, I'm going to write 20 because A is 20 degrees. Instead of writing opposite, I'm going to put little a. Instead of writing hypotenuse, I'm going to put little x. Right? So sine of 20 is A over X. Cos of 20, instead of again cos of A, it's cos of 20. Adjacent is 13.5, and hypotenuse is X. And tan of 20 is opposite, so it's little a over adjacent, which is 13.5. So I want to change my sine, cosine, and tangent of 20 degrees. I want to change those all to decimals like we did in a previous lesson. So now I've got my decimals, and I've got a ratio, just like we did with our candy problem, and I want to be able to cross multiply. So again, the question now is, which of my ratios should I cross multiply with? It's kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears. You kind of got three ratios here. Only one of them works. Only one of them is just right. And we're going to circle the cosine ratio as the just right ratio this time because it has X in it and everything else is numbers. If I use my sine ratio, I've got two numbers and two letters. If I use my tangent ratio, I do have three numbers, but I have a. I don't want to solve for a, I want to solve for x. So then I'm going to cross multiply 13.5 times 1 divided by 0.935, and my answer is 14.4. So that's our answer to question number 2. Let's go on to example number 3. Example number 3 is a right triangle, little 90-degree corner, 50 degrees this time. I'm going to keep using angle A as the angle we're going to solve for, just to kind of, I guess, give us some consistency. So I'm going to circle my A. I'm going to say my hypotenuse is the side that is opposite of C. Hey, there's nothing here. This side has an X and this side has a 5.5. So to make sure my hypotenuse doesn't feel too lonesome, I'm going to put my little c here with them. So my hypotenuse becomes the little c. Opposite of A, so 50 degrees is projecting all the way over here. So wherever I have opposite of A, I'm just going to actually write X in for it. And then my last side, again, the side that's touching angle A or the side that's missing is the adjacent. So adjacent A is going to be 5.5. So again, label the sides of the triangle: hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. That's the most important thing. Until we get really good at figuring out which ratio we're going to use, we're going to do a couple more questions where I want you to write out all three of the ratios: sine A, cos A, tan A. Opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, opposite over adjacent. So I want to make sure we know all three ratios. I want us to practice writing in the information for the ratios. So sine of 50. So sine of 50 is opposite. We said that's X. And hypotenuse is little c. So it's X over little c. Cosine of 50 is adjacent over hypotenuse. We said adjacent is 5.5. Hypotenuse is c. So it's 5.5 over c. And tangent of A. Opposite of A is X, and adjacent to A is 5.5. So X over 5.5. Once we have our three ratios written down, once we have our numbers and our letters in based on our triangle, let's change sine 50, cosine 50, and tangent 50 all to their decimal numbers. And now we want to figure out which of our three ratios is the best ratio to work with. And the answer is we're going to work with X over C. Nope. 5.5 over C. Nope. We're going to work with this one here. I'm just going to do one little quick thing though. I want to make this come to the front so that it's in front of my work. So here I have my answer. I have x over 5.5, 1.1918 over 1. I'm going to cross multiply the 5.5 times 1.1918 divided by 1, and I get this answer of 6.55, which rounds off to 6.6. Those are the steps. That's how we're going to solve for sides of a triangle. And which ratio you use, kind of like doing a Sudoku puzzle or doing a Ken-Ken. Sometimes you have to look at the information that's given to you and know which one's going to solve the problem. All right, you've got some time now to try some of these questions all on your own.